Hey everyone, my name's Mike and welcome to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about how to learn from other artists' styles and how to implement that within your own style. Alright, let's get started. The first thing that you will need to understand before you start to study the style of others is the general guidelines of the head. I have done a ton of videos on this, and there are some by many other creators out there as well. But the main thing is you want to understand where the brow line / eye sockets are, the nose line, the chin line, and the spot where the mouth is. You want to know these areas for regular human anatomy before you go into learning from others. The reason for this is because if you don't understand what the actual anatomy is, you won't be able to actually take in what they are simplifying and use that for your own work. And that's really what I'm going to be talking about for the majority of this video. As an aside, this is also the way to know if you are ready to start creating your own style. If you can consistently draw different parts of the body proportionately and the head with relative ease, then you are ready to start making stylistic choices. So number 2, what are the placeholders? So the first thing you want to break down is where the placeholders are for the top and bottom of the eye socket, where the nose rests, and where the mouth rests. Most of the time you will see a pretty big difference in the eye sockets for how characters are simplified in other styles. For both of the references that I'm using in this video, they have a pretty similar style for the eyes actually. The section of the face that rests between the brow line and the nose is actually elongated and takes up more space than the bottom of the nose to the chin. This is not typical of human anatomy. Typically the areas between the brow line and the nose, the brow line and the forehead, and the nose and the chin are all about the same length. I chose these two styles to study from specifically for this video so that we could see a difference in the anatomy. This is important to understand because you will not be able to replicate this in your own work if you can't spot it. Also, identifying the placeholders is the most important step to actually replicating a style. Number 3, stylistic choice in the features. After you've found the placeholders, it is time to start actually drawing out the different features. As stated in point number 1, you should already have a general idea on how to draw anatomy as a whole. Now you can observe the references that you have better with this understanding of anatomy. For instance, in these two styles, I'm noticing that Deku's eye socket is entirely taken up by his eyeball. There's little to no lid as well. And it also creates a scenario where the eyebrow is pretty thin and looks as though it is touching the eyeball itself. The eye is also completely round. There is no real indication for jagged lines. The creator was going for a softer, more innocent look for this character by having the eyes be incredibly big and round. For Tanjiro, there's slightly less space being taken up by the eye itself, which makes his features slightly more realistic overall. If we compare the two, even though they're both relatively cartoony, Tanjiro has more realistic features, and this mostly stems from the fact that his eyes are smaller, like I just stated. When a character has bigger eyes, the other features are typically smaller in comparison to help create balance to the face. So these are kind of the stylistic choices in the features that I am noticing, among other ones as well. Number 4, line weight and quality. This is another kind of stylistic choice by the creators, but you should also be looking at the line weight and the line quality of what you're trying to learn from. So in these pieces, I'm noticing that the weight of the lines in the eyes in particular and how it compares to everything else. For both characters, the heaviest line is actually the upper eyelash line. This is done for a few reasons. Number 1, the upper eyelash area is typically thick and fairly dark, so that a lot of manga creators darken that area as much as possible. And what I'm talking about here is in actual anatomy, those areas of your face, the upper eyelash, are pretty dark, so that's why they try to make it as dark as they can. Number 2, They want to draw your eye to something in the image, and that something is almost always the face, and in particular the eyes. Eyes convey the most emotion of the character that you're working on and in life in general. We can typically tell how a person feels just by looking at the eye and the eyebrow. The next thing I'm looking at is where the heavy weight is due to shadow and overlap. You can see this with Tanjiro in two areas, the chin and the nostrils. The reason why the nostrils are even present is because they are some of the darker spaces on the face. For Deku, the line weight is heaviest on the chin and on the sides of the head. The reason for this is both shading and the overlaps between the chin and the neck and the side of the head and the ears. Number 5, replication. So the last thing you see me doing is really trying to get my drawing as close as I can to the actual reference. This will help your brain register exactly what you are seeing and how it is different to the image of the head that you've created for yourself. I work on both of these simultaneously because I felt it would be challenging, but also allow me to consciously work on not getting dragged into perfectionism too much. That is another thing that's important. Don't feel like it has to be perfect. These sketches definitely are not, but if you can get it about 90% correct, that will have sufficed as a good study. Once you get good at replicating what you see, then you will start to move into trying to draw the same head angles with no references, then checking on how you did. After you're able to replicate someone else's style, then you can move into figuring out which things you like about their style and how you might want to implement them within your own work. And for an extra bonus point, number 6. Now you want to start to take what you have started to replicate and what you've learned before you even implement it in your own work. You want to start to turn the head in space and add those features to the head that's being turned, so it's going to be slightly different than your reference. So I actually created a video on this, and it's called One Way to Study Other Artists' Styles. And in that video, what I did was I took, I believe it was Tanjiro, I took Tanjiro's face and I had a reference up for it on the side after I had broken it down, and then I put it in a different angle and tried to create a face that looks at least somewhat similar to Tanjiro, and it worked pretty well. This is a way that you can really hone in on your skills as an artist, because it's you taking a reference and then turning it in space and recreating that reference. So that's a nice little bonus point for you. And then after you kind of perfect these kinds of things, it will allow you to then implement it within your own work more consistently, because that's some of the things that you see if you have discrepancies in your consistency in drawing faces, for instance. It's usually because of, one, you're going a little bit too fast and you haven't really learned how to properly place the features, but two, you haven't studied these styles enough that you want to implement within your own work, to the point in which you can replicate it at any angle. That takes a lot of time to do well, and it's okay, just take your time and consistently go at it. Alrighty. So this last bit of the video is just me finishing everything up, but I'm also going to wrap up here as well. I really hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that it's going to be helpful in your work moving forward. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If you did, you're the greatest. If you have any video recommendations for me, please hit that comment box down below and I will get to it as soon as I can. I try to respond to every single comment that I have. I also want to sincerely thank all of you for the continued support. It's been fantastic over the past month. Alright, I'm Manga Mike, and I'm out.